Your Excellency, Honorable Prime Minister of the Republic of Armenia, distinguished members of your delegation, Your Excellencies, ambassadors, honorable members of Parliament, dear members and friends of the German Council on Foreign Relations, ladies and gentlemen. It's a great pleasure to welcome you all here and in front of your screens for an exciting evening with the Prime Minister of the Republic of Armenia on Armenia's perspective on security and stability in the South Caucasus. Thank you, Mr. Prime Minister, for making time in your busy schedule to be with us tonight. We feel very honored that you chose DGAP for your public appearance during your stay in Germany. We are very aware of Armenia's accomplishments during your tenure as Prime Minister since May 2018. Your leadership in the 2018 Armenian Revolution is very vivid. You had to steer your country through a difficult 2020 war on Nagorno-Karabakh, which resulted in significant human, material, and territorial losses for Armenia. Your visit to Germany, Mr. Prime Minister, comes at a crucial moment. You just finished your meeting with Federal Chancellor Olaf Scholz. Tomorrow you will see Federal President Frank-Walter Steinmeier. The security situation in the South Caucasus is seriously in crisis. The future of the region is seriously undermined by Russia's war against Ukraine. The blockade of the Lachin corridor by so-called Azeri ecological activists in and around Nagorno-Karabakh causes a lot of humanitarian concerns. Talks with Azerbaijan about a lasting peace are not advancing as they should. For 30 years, Armenia has been in conflict with neighboring Azerbaijan about Nagorno-Karabakh. Under a ceasefire agreement brokered by Moscow, Armenia had to cede occupied territories to Azerbaijan in September 2022, several military clashes surrounding the disputed territories brought the region dangerously close to war once again. Since Turkey's role and political reach have increased and Russia's influence has diminished, Armenia is working towards a prudent normalization of the relations with that country. The evolution on the ground has been a wake-up call for Europe. A greater commitment to the region's affairs is required. The EU is getting more active again. The creation of a civil monitoring mission to Armenian territory, which has so far done a pretty good job, is a good step into the right direction, but it's not all. We're now looking forward with great interest to the keynote address to be presented by you, Mr. Prime Minister, in a minute. The speech will be followed by a panel discussion with Dr. Stefan Meister, head of DGAP's Center for Order and Governance in Eastern Europe, Russia and Central Asia, and Silvia Stöber, a freelance reporter and an expert specialized in Eastern Europe, as well as in foreign and security policy. Before joining DGAP, Stefan was director of the Heinrich Böll Foundation's South Caucasus office. As always, Stefan, we very much appreciate your participation. Since 2007, Silvia Stöber regularly reports from the South Caucasus. Amongst others, she writes for Tagesschau.de and the Tagesspiegel newspaper. A very much warm welcome to you here today, Silvia Stöber. Today's panel is chaired by Guntram Wolf. Since August 2022, Dr. Wolf is director and CEO of DGAP. Before joining DGAP, he was a director of Bruegel in Brussels until June 2022. His think tank on economic policy in Europe was very successful and advanced the debate on Europe, as he does here. In addition, he teaches at the Solvay School of Economics and Management of the Université Libre de Bruxelles. A warm welcome to you all as well, Guntram. Thank you for moderating the panel tonight. After the panel discussion, the floor will be open for questions from our guests. If you're participating digitally, please use the chat function of the Zoom meeting to put forward your questions. We will try to address and answer all of them. A small reception will take place directly after the event. A big thanks goes out to the Armenian embassy for providing the wine for that occasion. We're looking forward to that as well. Let me use this opportunity to thank you, Mr. Ambassador, and your staff at the Armenian Embassy in Berlin for the excellent cooperation in the preparation of this event. I also want to thank Yulia Loeva and her team, event team, as well as Wiebke Evering and her collaborators in the communications team for their enthusiastic efforts to make this event happening. I wish you all a most interesting and informative evening. Without further ado now, Mr. Prime Minister, the floor is yours. Thank you very much for being here.
Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, I am pleased to have this opportunity to be here today and address this distinguished audience. First of all, I would like to express my gratitude and appreciation to Mr. Ralph Nickel, Vice President of the Council, and Director Mr. Guntram Wolf and his team for organizing this event. Today we are living at a time when not only natural but also geopolitical tectonic shifts are taking place all around the world. Deepening geopolitical instability, growing tensions and unpredictability are weakening the world order and international security system, creating even bigger challenges, especially for a country like Armenia with democracy, making us more vulnerable in our complicated region. Dear attendees, we witnessed the first sprouts of today's challenges and the collapse of the European security architecture in our region back in 2020 when Azerbaijan unleashed a war against Nagorno-Karabakh. After the signing of the November 9, 2020 trilateral statement, Azerbaijan not only didn't abandon its bellicose politics and threats, but also carried out new aggression, this time against the sovereign territories of the Republic of Armenia in May 2021, November 2021, and September 2022. During the last aggression on September 13, 14, 2020, Azerbaijan launched a large-scale military attack targeting the military and civilian infrastructure of Armenia using heavy artillery, missile systems, and drones. As a result, the Armenian side had 225 victims, including 3 civilians. More than 100 square kilometers of the sovereign territory of Armenia were occupied. Today, I wouldn't like to go deep into the details of the aggressions of 2020, 2021, 2022, but it is impossible to ignore the evidences of multiple cases of torture, mutilation of captured or already dead Armenian servicemen, including servicewomen, and other atrocities by Azerbaijani military forces. The horrible videos of the Azeri militaries committing ISIS-style war crimes by executing Armenian prisoners of war should be acknowledged and addressed by the international community. Another issue is the engagement of the mercenaries from Syria by Azerbaijan. During the aggression of September 2022, when the external security system of Armenia didn't work, we requested an emergency meeting of the UN Security Council that was held on September 15, 2022. During the meeting, the UN Security Council member states noted that the use of force is totally unacceptable explicitly named the aggressor. Azerbaijan highlighted the importance of adherence to the norms of international humanitarian law, emphasizing also the fact that civilian infrastructure of the territory of Armenia was targeted. An important step toward the escalation of the situation was a quadrilateral meeting of President Macron, President Michel, President Aliyev and me in Prague on October 6, 2020, where an agreement was reached on deploying short-term EU in monitoring capacity along the international border between Armenia and Azerbaijan. When this mission mandate ended on December 19, 2022, at Armenia's request, the EU Council made a decision to deploy a new, fully fledged civilian mission on the territory of the Republic of Armenia for a 2-year period. On behalf of the government of Armenia, I would like to express our gratitude to the EU and its member states, particularly to the government of the Federal Republic of Germany for its support to our request. The mission was launched on the 20th February, and I have already met the head of the mission, your compatriot with extensive experience in international deployments, Mr. Markus Ritter in Yerevan. The mission shall play a crucial role in ensuring security on the ground and stability in the region, as well as timely and reliable reporting on the current situation to our partners in the European Union and its member states. Dear colleagues, Azerbaijan, since December 12, 2022, in gross violation of the provisions of the trilateral statement of November 9, 2020, has been illegally blocked the Lachin corridor connected Nagorno-Karabakh to Armenia. The blockade resulted in a humanitarian crisis. 120,000 Armenians of Nagorno-Karabakh had been cut off from natural gas, electricity, food, medical, and other vital supplies. Due to a severe shortage of food and other necessary goods, authorities of Nagorno-Karabakh had to take desperate measures, issued food coupons, and are rationing certain foodstuffs. Population receives only irregular power supplies from local electricity capacities. Universities, schools, and kindergartens were shut down, due to which more than 30,000 students and children were deprived of their right to education. On December 20, 2022, upon the request of the Republic of Armenia, an emergency meeting of the UN Security Council was held on the situation caused by blockade of the Lachin corridor. The overwhelming majority of the UN Security Council members made clear demands to stop the blockade of the corridor by Azerbaijan and to ensure the access of international organizations to Nagorno-Karabakh. Dozens of countries and organizations issued a targeted condemnation of the blockade of the Lachin corridor and urged Azerbaijan to end it. The Republic of Armenia has been putting efforts to send a UN and OSCE fact-finding mission to Nagorno-Karabakh and Lachin corridor. Also, the Republic of Armenia filed a request to the International Court of Justice of the United Nations under Convention of the Elimination of all forms of racial discrimination to apply provisional measures to unblock the Lachin corridor. On 20 of February, early this year, the International Court of Justice issued its order to Azerbaijan to take all measures at its disposal to ensure the unimpeded movement of persons, vehicles, and cargo along the Lachin corridor in both directions. Unfortunately, up to now, Azerbaijan failed to comply with the decision of the ICJ, and the traffic through the Lachin corridor is still disrupted. Though the natural gas supply is restored, electricity supply to Nagorno-Karabakh, having been cut off since 9 January 2023, has not been restored yet. Food supplies are still carried out by coupons, and people are deprived of crucial medical care. Only Red Cross and Russian peacekeepers are able to deliver limited amount of food and necessary life-saving goods to Nagorno-Karabakh and transport people with healthcare emergency needs to Armenian hospitals. Growing aggressiveness of Azerbaijan toward Nagorno-Karabakh makes clear the intentions of Azerbaijan to carry out an ethnic cleansing of Armenians in Nagorno-Karabakh. Recently, President Aliyev of Azerbaijan declared that Lachin corridor is open for those Armenians who want to leave Karabakh. That means that Lachin corridor is closed for those Armenians who live in Nagorno-Karabakh. Dear participants, despite the above mentioned, the government of Armenia has shown the political will and has been taking decisive steps to open a new era of peace and stability in South Caucasus, and has been engaged constructively in the Armenian-Azerbaijan negotiation. The Armenia-Azerbaijan negotiation process is going on in the following three main tracks: agreement on the normalization of relations between Armenia and Azerbaijan, unblocking of transport communications and economic links in the region, and border demarcations and security. Armenia agreed to separate from the Armenia-Azerbaijan process the settlement of Nagorno-Karabakh issue, with the logic that the mechanism of discussions between Stepanakert and Baku will be formed. It is essential for Armenia to establish a guarantee mechanism addressing the issues of security and rights of the Armenians of Nagorno-Karabakh, which will have international visibility and involvement. Without going into the details, I would like to mention that the key humanitarian issues, such as the return of all the Armenian prisoners of war and the access of international organizations to Nagorno-Karabakh, continue to remain unresolved and are the issues of our utmost concern. We strongly condemn the continuous violation of the Geneva Convention on the prisoners of war by Azerbaijan, as at least 33 Armenian prisoners have been sentenced to different terms of imprisonment through completely trumped-up charges. The refusal of Azerbaijan to repatriate Armenian prisoners of war is another violation by Azerbaijan of point 8 of trilateral statement of 9 November of 2020. Ladies and gentlemen, another aspect of our vision of regional peace is the normalization of relations with Turkey. We are ready to fully normalize relations with Turkey, establish diplomatic relations. We hope for full opening of our common border, which was unilaterally closed in the early 90s by Turkey. We have some small but hopeful signs that we are moving forward. Special representative of our countries agreed upon establishing air cargo transportation and opening interstate borders for third country citizens in July 2022. In January, a ban on direct air cargo transportation between Turkey and Armenia has been lifted, and we hope for the speedy implementation of the opening of the border for third country citizens. Also, I met President Erdogan in Prague on the margins of the European Political Community Summit in Prague 2022. It was in October, where we discussed the prospect of normalization. Armenia reacted rapidly after the recent devastating earthquake in Turkey. I called up President Erdogan with condolences and proposed our support. After that, we sent humanitarian aid and a rescue team to the affected areas. It is very important to state that 2 convoys of humanitarian aid entered into Turkey through the border bridge, which had been closed for 30 years. Our rescue team returned to Armenia through that bridge as well. Armenian Foreign Minister visited Turkey, met his counterpart, and reiterated our readiness and willingness to fully normalize relations. Though the last interactions were, of course, of purely humanitarian essence, we, however, would be glad to have the political outcomes. Dear friends, I would like to stress that the European Union is one of our key partners on our democratic reform path. In this context, it is worth to mention that Germany is a major political and economic partner for Armenia, providing development aid and support for our democratic reforms. Continuing the topic of cooperation with the European Union, I would like to inform you of a new important format of the Armenia-EU partnership agenda, the political and security dialogue that the inaugural meeting of which took place in Yerevan last January. The discussion on a wide range of issues, including the overall regional situation and the prospect of deepening our collaboration in certain areas, was not only timely but also considerably enriched our diverse partnership agenda with the European Union. In this context, I would like to stress that the basis for our cooperation with the European Union is democracy. And according to the latest index of the General Assessment of Eastern Partnership member states, Armenia topped the democracy and good governance rating table among the Eastern Partnership member countries and is a leader in the following 5 areas: fight against corruption, an independent judiciary, opinion and freedom of expression, freedom of assembly and association, independent media and democratic rights, elections and political pluralism. Despite all the challenges, we do believe that our security architecture cannot be comprehensive without respect for human rights, rule of law, and democracy. Democracy is a strategy for us. We will keep up reforms aimed at strengthening the rule of law, consolidating good governance, and fighting against corruption, aiming to ensure prosperity for our people. The 2018 democratic Velvet Revolution, followed by 2018 and 2021 snap parliamentary elections, proved that Armenia's democratic development path is irreversible. In this regard, 2021 parliamentary elections were exceptional. It was first case when election in Armenia served as a tool for overcoming the political crisis. I mean internal political crisis that we had after the 44 days war of 2020. Usually, elections sparked political crisis in our country, and it was the case from 1994 to 2018. But this page is turned off after democratic revolution of 2018. And Armenia now is an internationally recognized democratic country. However, recent security challenges raise serious questions. The following question: whether democracy can provide security, whether Armenian democracy is able to provide security. This is the question that rightfully worries the Armenian society today, and an issue to be addressed by our government. Thank you for your attention.
Good. So thank you so much, Prime Minister, for your speech and the clear exposition of where you stand and where your country currently stands. We now have time for first two comments and reactions to your speech. And then, of course, we want to give you a chance to, again, react to the reactions and also, of course, get our distinguished audience into the conversation. And so then really get your questions and remarks to the Prime Minister. I want to start with Dr. Meister, our expert on the region. Stefan, over to you for first reactions.
Thank you, Mr. Levin. It's a great pleasure for us to have you here, and I think it's really important also that you are in Berlin, and that there is this interest also from the German side on the situation in the South Caucasus, and especially between Armenia and Azerbaijan. I just want to pick up one I think key word you have said, and then I'm just drawing a little bit broader picture. I think it was rather a question about democracy. Democracy is making the country more vulnerable, and we know it's spoken also from the opposition. Democracy versus security, which I think is really is a wrong approach, and I think it is only democracy which makes, in my opinion, Armenia stronger. This is a society which is the backbone also of the very functioning of the country. So I think I know it's a very difficult situation, but I deeply believe that democracy and also your re-election after the war shows what the society wants. I just wanted to make this point in the beginning. I just want to draw a little bit broader picture, because I think this is also important to link what you have said and with the German audience. If we look to the current situation in the South Caucasus, we have two main events that have changed the security and geopolitical balance in the South Caucasus. And this is first of all the 2020 second Nagorno-Karabakh war, and the second, the Russian invasion in Ukraine. I think they really have changed the security balance in the region. If you look into the second Nagorno-Karabakh war, I think it's one of the most underestimated wars in Europe, which we had in the last 10 years and the last decade. I think military experts watching very much this war, but I think it is a crucial war also in shaping not only the situation between Armenia and Azerbaijan, but changing the entire region. And I think that this is of crucial importance also for Europe and for the European Union in terms of security, transit, but also in terms of the order. And this war has also strengthened Russia's role in the region. Then we have the large-scale invasion in Ukraine. which has weakened Russia's role, because Russia is now much more busy in Ukraine, and it's shifting its interests. I think that's also important. Russia has a bigger interest engaging with Azerbaijan and with Turkey in circumventing sanctions, and Turkey plays here a key role, and also with the North-South corridor to Iran and the Middle East, and I think that's shaping also, or changing the Russian position here. And I think what we see in the South Caucasus is that there is no regional security order in the South Caucasus, and there are no Russian security guarantees anymore. But Russia has really has always its own interest, but I think especially for Armenia, this situation is very, very difficult because it's very vulnerable, and it is at the moment in a very weak position. And I think that's also why it is so important that international actors are coming more in, and we have an internationalization also of the conflict in the region. And I think we have to admit that it is not anymore about only about Karabakh, Nagorno-Karabakh, but it is also about the sovereignty of the Armenian state. I think this is a big shift we have seen in the last years. And we also see that the regional order is reshaped and Turkey's role is increasing. I think the positive development with the war in Ukraine or against Ukraine is that for the first time the EU is playing a much bigger role in regional security, provided a facilitation platform between Armenia and Azerbaijan, and has deployed also now a monitoring mission. I think the Prime Minister has mentioned this, and I think this has a de-escalating effect. So at the same time, connectivity seems to be the solution for everything. So the new buzzword for the South Caucasus is connectivity. But I think this needs to be filled with politics and concrete steps. And I think what we see, especially in the case of Armenia and Azerbaijan, is a weaponization of infrastructure and corridors. Yeah, the corridorization also of politics, the securitization of everything, and I think enlarging and also the so-called Sanksur corridors are examples for this, that connectivity is not only positive, but it can be also weaponized by actors. And Armenia does not benefit from these corridors at the moment. It makes it more vulnerable. So, just to sum up here, the EU needs to become more than just a facilitator. I think it needs to become a negotiator. It needs to take ownership also for peace in the region. It needs to become a peace actor, and it needs more international presence in this region. I think, and I see this moment also as an opportunity for peace and for real agreement. And I think this is also one part of this is a democratic elected government in Armenia, which is willing also to make much more compromises than it was before. And just the last point, I think also the agreement between Armenia and Turkey is really possible now. I think that's really another opportunity we can see, and therefore I'm more optimistic with all this very difficult situation in which the region and this conflict at the moment.
Thank you so much, Stefan, and please allow me one follow-up question before I go to our next panelist, which is really about your last point, more engagement of the EU. If you could explain to our domestic audience, perhaps in some more detail, what is the interest? What is the interest of Germany and the EU in engaging more? Is it related to the connectivity aspects, green hydrogen possibly, and energy security? Is it related to military and regional stability? How would you explain the pitch to be more engaged to, let's say, a skeptical domestic audience, because domestic audience are always, as we know, somewhat wary in engaging in adventures seemingly far away.
Yes, I think it's connectivity, it's the growing interest in the middle corridor, it's the interest also to engaging more with the Caspian region, connecting Europe with Asia. I think that's one part, that's the economic part. But I think it is also about the role as the EU as a normative power, in supporting also democracy and stability in its region. And if EU is not able to shape the orders which are re-emerging in our neighborhood, to be really a peace actor engaging in the conflicts, it will fail also as a global actor. I think it's for me crucial that it's with its agenda also of democratization, stability. It is part of this region, which is also part of Europe. Yeah, and I think the South Caucasus and also this conflict, I think, has impact on so many other issues: relations with Turkey, relations with Iran, connections towards Asia, relations with Russia. Yeah. If we
first get the second panelist, it's okay, or you want to react directly?
Who's shaping this order, other actors will do it with a different governance concept, with a different concept also of stability and peace. And I think that's not in the interest of the European Union.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Stefan. And I just heard that the Prime Minister wants to directly react to that possibly that last point, and then our second panelist.
Yeah, thank you very much. You know, it's very important to state that sometimes the same words can have different meanings in the different regions. So usually in Europe, when we say corridor, we mean the connectivity, transportation, etc., etc. But in our situation, it isn't the case. Why? Because of the trilateral statement of the 9th November of 2020. Because in that trilateral statement, we have one mention of corridor. And this is Lachin corridor, which is, according to the trilateral statement, should be and is out of control of Azerbaijan, and it was by the agreement of the Azerbaijan, and Azerbaijani president signed the trilateral statement. So in the same statement we have an article on connectivity, which is about the regional connectivity, regional economic and transportation routes, etc., etc. And there is no any provision about the corridor to the territory of Armenia. And it is very important, Azerbaijan, and recently very important to state that President Aliyev of Azerbaijan recently he publicly said that there is no any provision about so-called corridor. You mentioned that it was Azerbaijan that invented this term after the signing of the trilateral statement. The question is how it is possible unilaterally incorporate something in trilateral statement. That's impossible. So Lachin corridor is a life route for Armenians of Nagorno-Karabakh, because there is no any other route for Armenians of Nagorno-Karabakh to the external world, and that is according to, and it is by the agreement of our Azerbaijani president, is out of control of Azerbaijan. From the other side, we accepted that we bilaterally, not only Armenia, but Azerbaijan as well, should open all economic and communication routes. And there is no any provision that those routes should be out of control of Armenia. We announced many times that is a red line for us. But from the other side, we are ready. And there is no any exaggeration. Even tomorrow, even tomorrow, even today evening, Armenia is ready to open all communications. And by the way, in the Brussels, we had a trilateral meeting. It happened in 14 December, and there was concrete agreement that now we agreed trilaterally to restore, to rebuild the railway to the south of Armenia, between Azerbaijan, Armenia, and further it can go to the Turkey, to Iran, to Russia. It was agreed, it was announced, and there was very important nuance, and according the agreement included the agreement that railways should operate under the legislation of those countries through which they pass through. But unfortunately, after that, 1 week after that, Azerbaijan refused to sign what was already agreed in presence of the President of the European Council, Charles Michel. So, what is the nuance? Saying Zangezur corridor, that means to support the territorial claims of Azerbaijan against Armenia. And it is, I would ask you to consider this factor, that the same word can have different meanings in the different regions, in the different political circumstances. So that was my reaction.
Yeah, thank you so much. Very clear. Sylvia Stöber, you wrote extensively on the region. You're an expert on the region. We look forward to your comments.
Thank you very much. Just would like to give a few comments on aspects you spoke about, and just to go a little deeper. The government of Armenia faces enormous challenges at home and on its borders. In the midst of this complex situation, it's a good sign that the normalization of the relation between Armenia and Turkey is progressing gradually. The start of the cargo flights is possible since the beginning of this year, as Mr. Phashina said, and the next step is the opening of borders, border crossings initially for citizens from third countries. The Armenian aid convoy for the victims of the earthquake in Turkey was, beyond the humanitarian gesture, an important political signal that rapprochement is possible. And at best, this rapprochement could help create a solution for further links in the South Caucasus. Of this, the most difficult is probably the transportation link between the Azerbaijani exclave of Nakhichevan across Armenian territory to Azerbaijan, which you spoke about. The interests of Turkey and Iran are also affected here, and Russia insists on the peace agreement of 2020, which provides for Russian checkpoints along those routes. It is thanks to international pressure from all sides that Azerbaijan has so far not been able to use military force to push through the constructions of this so-called Zangezur corridor, as it is named by Azerbaijan. Sorry, I will only speak about transportation links.
That's okay.
The deployment of this EU short-term observer mission from October to December to Armenia's border region with Azerbaijan obviously contributed to help to not to have another military aggression at this border. At least there were no more military clashes on the border area during this period until the end of December. In this respect, there is hope that the now established long-term mission with 100 staff can contribute to a stable situation in this region. Domestically, too, the challenges for the Armenian government are high. After the peaceful transition of power in 2018 led by Mr. Phashinian, society remained polarized. The former leadership continued to try to assert its interests through the media and the judiciary. However, it did not succeed in getting the population behind it to such an extent that it managed to return to power. The challenge remains to establish the judiciary, law enforcement agencies, and others as politically independent institutions to fight corruption and to strengthen the social systems. In this regard, Prime Minister Phashinyan's government has already undertaken some reforms. The economic upswing in the past year could help to continue this process.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. Perhaps you want to react to, I saw that you reacted to one point already. Perhaps you can do that with the microphone so that we have that discussion. And then I want to invite, of course, our audience to react, to ask questions. And Stefan and Silvia, if you have still points to add in the course of the conversation, of course you will. The questions are addressed to all three panelists. Please, Prime Minister.
I would like to touch upon the issue of democracy in Armenia. And I would like to stress that there is no any internal threat for democracy in Armenia. And I think the elections of 2021 proved that. But from the other side, we have external threat for our democracy, and the continuous escalations and aggressive rhetorics, hate speech of Azerbaijan, let's say, is a main threat for Armenian democracy. By the way, it's very important fact to state. First time after the 2020 war, Azerbaijan invaded into Armenian sovereign territory in the 12th May of 2021. And it was 2 days after I resigned as a Prime Minister and snap parliamentary elections were underway. So it was a constitutional process after the resignation of Prime Minister. If new Prime Minister wouldn't elect it, that means snap parliamentary election. And when we declared we are going to have snap parliamentary elections, 2 days after that, Azerbaijan invaded into Armenian territory. And this was an attempt to impact on the election results, to disrupt, to demolish all the democratic achievements of Republic of Armenia, to try to create a chaotic situation, not to allow to have elections, to reduce the legitimacy of the government of Armenia. But even in those circumstances, we stayed devoted to democracy, and we have managed to have free democratic elections, and it isn't our assessment. It is the assessment of international community, international observers, and international media.
Prime Minister, thank you so much. I do want to, before I take questions from the audience, I do want to ask you one question related to Stefan Meister's remarks. Stefan Meister talked quite a bit about the role of Russia and how Russia's role increased in the 2020 war and how Russia lost influence, perhaps attention scope for the region. How would you characterize at the current juncture the relation between your country and Russia?
You know, the situation security situation in our region became and is becoming more and more complicated because due to situation and events, developments around Ukraine, all the international attention is being concentrated on Ukraine. That's why during the crisis in Ukraine, we had most dangerous crises in Nagorno-Karabakh and in the territorial integrity of Armenia. First, in May of 2021, Azerbaijan invaded into the territory, into the Nagorno-Karabakh, into the zone of responsibility of Russian peacekeepers, and after that we had a major crisis in the September when Azerbaijan started a full-scale aggression against Armenia. And there are many factors for that development, but most important factor that the attention of all the international community was concentrated on Ukraine, and that creates more space for stability in our region.
Wonderful, thank you. So I have a question there, gentleman there, and then the lady there in the back, and a third question over there. And we take always 3, but we have time to go several rounds, please. And please always quickly introduce yourself.
Thank you very much. My name is Eckhard Kunz. I had been head of the EU department of the Foreign Office, and after that, for 5 years, between 2006 and 2011, German ambassador in Ankara, in Turkey, as it is called now in English. And during that time, of course, we were hoping very much that there could be a rapprochement between Armenia and Turkey. Yet there was one big stumbling block. That was the recognition of genocide during the First World War. Now I was much impressed by your statement that Armenia is ready to establish diplomatic relations with Turkey. So that seems to be a very big step forward. Second remark on Russia. You said also for the food supply for Nagorno-Karabakh, Russian peacekeepers are very important. So do you see the positive role of those peacekeepers?
Thank you so much, and I suggest we collect 3 questions also. The second was the lady there in the back.
My name is Alexandra Hildebrand. I am director from Museum of the Berlin Wall at Checkpoint Charlie, Mauer Museum, Museum House at Checkpoint Charlie. My question is, do you have the Communist Party in your country still or not? And if you have Russian in your country, and how many? Is this minority, is this majority? And they speak Russian in your country, or speak your language? How it works?
Thank you so much. And the gentleman there, yes, and you come after. Please.
Good evening, my name is Rolf Schulze. I used to be head of the Southern Caucasus and Central Asia desk of the Foreign Ministry for the development Armenia is taking in recent years. If I may, I would like to comment very briefly on what Dr. Meister said. Yes, it is of course true the European Union must and should play a visible and strong role in a peace process in the Southern Caucasus. It's a neighboring region. It is very important to our own security. But let me assure you, as far as Germany is concerned, for example, the Southern Caucasus, for many, many years already, is very much on the foreign policy agenda. It's not a new area. If you look at the archives, there have been multiple or even countless European or German or joint peace initiatives and proposals. The European Union, over a decade ago, we nominated a high-ranking diplomat in Brussels, a special representative for the Southern Caucasus, to give only one more example. France, Your Excellency, you mentioned the important role France is playing. France has a double head as a nation, but also as a European Union member. So, to sum up very briefly, yes, we must contribute to a peace process, but we are aware of that for many, many years. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Prime Minister, perhaps you want to react to those three questions, and I look at my panelists, you raise your hands when you want to get in. Okay.
About the Russians in Armenia, we have, of course, a Russian minority in our country, but we have not, I'm not sure even if we have, yes, we have registered Communist Party, but they aren't active. Maybe I don't want to comment because they would react as an oppositional party. That yes, we have, but we have no in the parliament. In the parliament and in any municipality, and I don't remember even if they participated in any elections during last, I don't know, 5 years. By the way, now we have more Russian in our country because many people, especially from the IT sector, they relocated into Armenia, and I think that's because of some technical issues. Because usually they receive salaries from Western companies and through the MasterCard, Visa card, and international money system. And after the sanctions, maybe they aren't able to receive salaries, so they decided to relocate in Armenia. Maybe they like our country, and to be honest, we are glad for their presence because it makes some additional economic activities in our country. And by the way, we had 12.5% of economic growth in 2022. Not totally, but partially. It is
Russian immigrants.
Because of the activities of Russian immigrants. And by the way, I would like to say something not directly connected to your question, but it's connected with our regional situation, because the representatives of Azerbaijan very frequently now mention that Armenia is mono-national, mono-ethnic country, and they represent that as a fact and as a very negative. But I would like to stress that we have places in our parliament for national minorities. We have Yazidi and that is compulsory. So that means, according to our constitution, national minorities have mandate in our parliament. And now we have Russian representative, Assyrians representative, Kurds representative, Yazidi, and by the way, Yazidi community is biggest national ethnic minority in our country, and I think now we have four places, compulsory places, guaranteed places for national minorities in our country, and if I'm not mistaken, there is no places in the Azerbaijani parliament for national minorities. There was another connected with Turkey or Turkey. To be honest, Armenia never has any precondition for the establishing relations with Turkey. Never, and it isn't the case now. We have no any precondition. We just think that we are neighbors and we should have relations. And to be honest, I'm even not sure that it's right to voice that now, but I think the main obstacle for the establishment of the relations between Armenia and Turkey is position of Azerbaijan. Because Azerbaijan every time is urging Turkey not to establish the relations between Armenia. But maybe I shouldn't have said that, but I would like you to know the very important nuances of that process. We are ready today, and in this case also there is no any exaggeration. Today we are ready to open borders, and by the way, we didn't close the border. The border closed only from the side of Turkey, but now we have I think very important step. As I said, our humanitarian aid went to Turkey through our border, and of course it was totally our reaction and position was totally based on the humanitarian approach. But if this decision of sending humanitarian aid to Turkey would have some political results as well, we will be glad for that.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. Stefan, perhaps we take three and then I come, because we have I see a lot of hands actually now. So can you, so the gentleman there was next. I think you were a little bit later, and we had Andras, and then you, and then afterwards the third round, please. Yeah.
Thank you, sir, for giving me this floor. My name is Javed Neseli. I'm the counselor of the Embassy of Azerbaijan in Berlin, and I have some short remarks with regard to the remarks of Mr. Prime Minister of Armenia. And I'd like to state that it is very curious that Armenia is a country which bears full responsibility for unleashing the illegal war of aggression against Azerbaijan, committing systematic and widespread war crimes and other atrocities, disregarding binding United Nations Security Council resolutions that demanded immediate, complete and unconditional withdrawal of the Armenian armed forces from the then occupied territories of Azerbaijan, as well as the ruling of the European Court of Human Rights in the landmark decision on the case of Chiragov and others versus Armenia in 2015. which found Armenia responsible for violations of the rights of the Azerbaijani IDPs, speaks now about international law, human rights, and so-called aggression from Azerbaijan, by Azerbaijan. And regarding the
so if you could try to phrase it as short as possible and as a question, please.
Yes, 2 minutes.
1 minute, please.
Regarding Laçın Road, under the statement of 10 November 2020, the road cannot be used for military purposes or for trafficking of natural resources and other forms of wealth that Armenia and its legal entities have been unlawfully exploiting in the territories of Azerbaijan for its own economic growth gain. And last and not least, now we have a unique opportunity, unique chance for the both sides, for our both countries, to achieve peace finally. And the peace can only be achieved on the basis of mutual recognition of territorial integrity, mutual respect and confirmation of absence of any territorial claims against each other. It is paramount important that Armenia renounces all territorial claims and recognizes Karabakh as part of Azerbaijan. And my question is if Armenia ready to recognize our territorial integrity with Karabakh as part of Azerbaijan. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. So we had the second question was Andras Rash, senior fellow at DGAP.
Good evening. Thank you, sir. My name is Andras Rash, senior fellow here at DGAP, specialist from Russia. I'd like to have one short question to His Excellency. The 9th of November 2020 ceasefire agreement prescribes that the mandate of the Russian peacekeeping mission is for 5 years, and the mandate gets extended if none of the sides opposes it. My question is, what happens if Azerbaijan decides not to extend the mandate of the peacekeeping mission? Thank you, sir.
Thank you so much. And the third question here. Take the microphone.
Thank you very much. My name is Emin Milny. I'm chairman of Restart Initiative, and I'm from Azerbaijan. My question is this, Mr. Prime Minister. There is always, when you speak at the panel with Mr. Aliyev, or when there is always Azerbaijani and Armenians in the room, or online, there is always negative and this hate speech. And we as initiative, we bring together Armenian and Azerbaijani experts together with Heritage School, also in Berlin and Tbilisi, to discuss very specifically what can Azerbaijan and Armenia gain if this peace agreement will be signed. In transport, in trade, in water management, in other very specific areas, in energy, which will affect lives of everyone in Armenia and Azerbaijan. And during one of these events, Aram Arjanyan, UN expert from Yerevan, actually one of his interviews offered to me, he said that if Azerbaijan and Armenia sign this peace agreement, there will be, let's say, this full diesel which Armenia buys through Europe, through Russia, will come from Azerbaijan. It will affect immensely, like, the prices in Armenia, and it will also decrease, all other prices in Armenia. And for me, it was shocking that nobody talks about it, neither in Armenia nor in Azerbaijan. Like, nobody is discussing what this peace can give us. So my question was, are you discussing this with Aliyev, and why do you think there is always this negative narrative that dominate this media and public space between Azerbaijan and Armenia? Thank you.
Thank you so much. I think that is a rich set of questions.
Yeah, thank you very much. Let's to react to the first point of the representative of the consulate of Azerbaijan in a written way, a paragraph. Let me mention that the International Court of Justice recently, 22 February, rejected Azerbaijan's request made in the parallel proceeding which Azerbaijan brought against Armenia regarding the claims of the alleged mine planting. International Court of Justice rejected the claims of Azerbaijan that Armenia or Nagorno-Karabakh use the Lachin corridor for military purposes. So, I think I don't need to react because International Court of Justice reacted already. As far as the recognition of the territorial integrity bilaterally is concerned, it is already agreed in the Prague during as an outcome of quadrilateral meeting, and there is a provision on that document agreed in Prague that Azerbaijan and Armenia recognize each other territorial integrity and agree that the delimitation process should base on the Almaty Declaration of 1991. This is the declaration of the establishment of Commonwealth of International States. And what says that declaration? That administrative borders between the former Soviet republics become state borders. And according to the Prague Agreement, the delimitation process should base on these principles. But if I'm not mistaken, 10 days after that, President Aliyev of Azerbaijan declared that the delimitation process between Armenia and Azerbaijan should base on the historical maps. What does it mean, historical maps? We have already agreed that we recognize each other territorial integrity based on that declaration. Moreover, recently, President of Azerbaijan introduced a new initiative called Western Azerbaijan. Do you know what does it mean? That there is no territory. Armenia has no sovereign territory. The whole territory of Republic of Armenia is Western Azerbaijan. Parallelly, saying that we are willing to peace, etc., etc., etc. You know, it's very weird situation, and that is the main problem. That is the main problem on our relations. We agreed on the 9th November trilateral statement. We signed. President of Azerbaijan and me and President of Russia, we signed the document. We reached that agreement. It was a very heavy decision for me, for Armenia. But there is a provision that all prisoners of war, detainees and hostages should be returned should be repatriated. Until now, we have 33 prisoners of war. We have now a prisoner, a civilian person, who was catched, the representative of the charity organization, who was catched in Lachin corridor by the Azerbaijani and was sentenced to 25 years in prison. And you know for what? 3 days before that, he went into live broadcast in Facebook, and he said something that family of Azerbaijani president didn't like. And that's the old. Now he is, according to the sentence of Azerbaijani court, he is a spy, terrorist, killer, etc., etc.
So, Your Excellency, if I can ask you, I see that the conflict and the antagonism is still very strong. We've heard a proposal here to think about a positive agenda. And I was wondering if you can react to that positive agenda and also perhaps give us a sense of what could be a positive agenda from your point of view.
I'm thankful for the issue raised by a representative of Azerbaijan, yes, if I'm not mistaken.
Restarted issue.
Yes.
I think it's an initiative here based in Berlin, if I understood you correctly, and you are originally from Azerbaijan. Yes.
Yeah. And in 2018, when I became Prime Minister of Armenia, I had a call during my press conference to the social media users of Armenia and Azerbaijan on the same issue. I asked them not to use that platform for hate speech, for aggressive rhetorics, for offensive rhetoric, but try to talk with each other, to understand each other's positions. But unfortunately, my initiative wasn't addressed, and I totally agree with you that we need to concentrate on the positive future of our mutual regional future. Because, that's the fact. We, especially three South Caucasus countries, Georgia, Armenia, and Azerbaijan, they have very strong cultural similarities. That's the fact. And we need to concentrate on the positive sides. You are right. We are interested. And that's true that maybe Armenia more interested in the opening of regional communications. And that's why Azerbaijan is trying to, to sell it to Armenia as expensive as it's possible. But we are ready. And by the way, I was criticized in Armenia. Many people in Armenia consider me pro-Azerbaijani. And they criticize me for being pro-Azerbaijani, pro-Turkish, etc., etc. And I totally agree with you that we need to concentrate on positive possibilities of peace and cooperation. And the peace agenda is my obligation.
Okay.
And please, and I would like to have some support from Azerbaijani society as well.
Okay, thank you so much. I do want to get a reaction from our two panelists, Is okay for you? Okay, so we do a final round and then we get in reverse order so that you have the last word. So I have the gentleman there. Please question, short questions, yes.
Your Excellency, I'm a Yazidi from Turkey, and our nations have always been close friends and supported each other. due to the painful history. A lot of Yazidis live also in Armenia. Some of them are also part of the Armenian Defense Forces. I have two questions, Your Excellency. My first is, what has to happen to stop the Azerbaijani aggressions on Karabakh permanently? Maybe you can make 3 key points. And my second question is, do you think the Western world, especially the USA and Europe, do enough to promote a solution in that conflict? And if not, what do you expect concretely from Western world? Thank you.
Thank you so much. So the gentleman here, and then there was, I think, a colleague of mine in the back. Yes, please.
Hello, my name is Sergej. I'm a climate advisory war activist from Russia, and my question is to Prime Minister, Mr. Phashinian. And I want to ask you, for my experience, it's not always effective to have negotiations with dictators. And so, do we have a plan B if the blockade of Artsakh continues? Are you discussing any pressure mechanism against Azerbaijani dictator with European colleagues? Do we have any plans on that?
Thank you, and if you can pass the mic, yes.
My name is Anastasia Bochman. I work with the GLG. The Prime Minister, I also have a question to you. I have a question about the assessment of your relationship and the participation at the CSTO. Well, because you just recently announced that CSTO will not hold its joint exercises in Armenia this year. And I was wondering, how do you now balance with getting a new mission, CSDP mission from the EU, and participation in the CSTO? How do you see also the changing relationships with the CSTO partners in Russia in this context? Thank you.
Thank you so much. And I do want to read the 2 questions from the chat. One is on the role of Iran and in Israel in the Karabakh conflict. So if you can say a word on that. And the last one by Maria Musla, I think, is quite related to what we already heard here. It's about what concrete steps do you expect or do you hope to get from the EU and perhaps also the US in order to peacefully resolve the conflict. And before I give you the floor, I do want to give Stefan Meister and Silvia Stöber the chance to also react to any point you would want to take up. So, Silvia, why don't you start, please?
Thank you. When we speak about diplomatic solutions and connectivity in the South Caucasus, there's still one thing missing, and this is connections between people. And this is a thing that has not been addressed enough during the last years, and there was this talks, EDC and so on. But this is really important, and when we imagine that one day there will be a train going from one side to the other side, then people will finally meet. And what will happen then? This is the big question. And I have some good experiences. We did some training with people from all 3 countries of South Caucasus for journalists, and they were really good experiences. They really want to talk with each other. They really have topics they can talk about. And so, if this would start and people came together, I'm optimistic that it could have a different solution.
Stefan?
I just want to react again to this question of Germany's role. I think we all understand that OSCE is not functioning anymore as a multilateral platform for dealing with the conflict, and I think that's why I always argue for and what we have seen after 2022 is after 2020 is a regionalization of the conflict, and I think it's really important that there is again an internationalization of the conflict, that the EU is playing this role, and that the member states are supporting also in a bigger amount this role. And I agree with you that in the past Germany played a role. We remember the idea of the Stability Pact for the South Caucasus, for instance. So there were a lot of initiatives from the German side, and I don't see them anymore at the moment. I don't see this activities, interest, and ownership from the German side, and that's why I'm raising it. Just on peace dialogue and peace building, I think we all understand that after 2020, this was in the crisis. And I have good context to a lot of peace builders who were working on Karabakh since since many years, and we're deeply frustrated. So I think really this connection with societies, real connection with societies, no closed shops, experts, just meetings, but really this exchange, I think that needs to be somehow reanimated. And I rather believe here also in a new generation, which might think also differently. So I see these people in both countries, but I also understand that big politics is not always supportive for it.
Prime Minister, please.
I will try to concentrate on positive narrative in the final part of our meeting. What I expect from the international community, first of all, make it clear that any provocation in our region, it doesn't matter, by Armenia or by Azerbaijan, would meet a very harsh reaction of international community, and it is very important to keep stability. I said no matter by Armenia or Azerbaijan, because now we have observers in the region, and now there is no need for European Union to ask decide who started. Now you have your own source of information. And in general, I would like to say that our political team, parliamentary majority, took the responsibility for peace agenda. And now we have a mandate for peace agenda. And now we are concentrating on addressing, on delivering that mandate. And we need for support for international community, for our for nations of our region. And we are ready to bear that responsibility until the final, comprehensive and lasting peace. And recently, I announced in our parliament that in our government that I have full determination to go and sign a peace agreement with Azerbaijan. But it shouldn't be like a capitulation for Armenia. It should be real, lasting peace for our region, and I'm ready to take the responsibility and for the peace, for stability, for regional cooperation, for international cooperation. That is my final conclusion of today's discussion. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Prime Minister. And there is some wine waiting for us outside. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Prime Minister.